Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing what I can only describe as sort of the tattletale media. I'm going to be talking about one particular article, although I didn't really mean for this to seem like I'm pointing out one particular outlet. I've seen this in other outlets, including but not limited to the Bangkok Post, The Nation, seen things on ThaiVisa.com, various other things on the internet, where you've got people talking about just a kind of a tattletale mentality. And I'll get into this. I hope the viewer will understand what I'm talking about. I've been hesitant to make these kind of videos where I sort of delve into my personal thoughts on it. This is less a video on the law and more just a video on what are we doing? What is this serving? What purpose is this serving? How do you call this kind of thing news? And I'm not pointing out this particular outlet exclusively. I've been getting increasingly frustrated reading many of the news outlets here in Thailand. And this was a phenomenon I saw last year reading the American news primarily. That's where I primarily read a lot of foreign things, although I do read a lot coming out of Australia just because it's English language and it's coming out of this part of the world, so it's easier for me to keep an eye on what's going on down there. But I saw this happening a lot last year, and we've had a year of hindsight with a lot of these things, and I find it just fascinating that it's as if many in Thailand, and I'm not talking exclusively about the locals, about Thais here in Thailand, it also seems the foreigners are trapped in some kind of bubble where they can't read about and get the information about what's gone on in other parts of the world. For example, the United States, and just as a preface, just to point out, there's various places that have removed a lot of restrictions, especially rather draconian restrictions, and have had virtually no negative impact. Or if anything, one could argue it's had a positive impact. It's had an affirmatively positive impact, most notably in places like Texas and Florida. Harder to make the argument with Florida because they sort of had a laissez-faire attitude earlier on. Texas, however, had pretty draconian lockdowns, relatively draconian lockdowns, and then went ahead and just pulled everything, just stopped it, and things completely turned around case-wise. Again, I don't know the science. I don't know why that is, but I think it's interesting to point it out, and folks over here don't seem to be taking that into account. Now, that's kind of moving a little bit further afield from the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video, it's just been, since this third wave began, I was really impressed. Up until about mid-April, I was frankly really impressed with how Thailand handled everything on this. Now, I understand that the vaccine issue, it hasn't rolled out the way that everybody would have liked. Well, things happen, and it's certainly tragic that people have died. However, as we pointed out in other videos, a lot of people die from traffic in Thailand. In fact, a disproportionate number compared to the rest of the world. And we're not sitting around making draconian traffic rules. Although they have changed some of the speed limits in Thailand, I suspect, we're not going to see major changes to road fatalities anytime soon. Again, not the main thrust of this video, more just to provide, in my opinion, a little nuance on how to analyze all of this. Thailand shut down March 2020. So we're sitting here in June 2021. That's a full, 15 months or going on 15 months of time, an interval of time. And we were already, starting to see a massive slowdown of people coming in late February. So the purpose of this video is, and I'll get into it here in a minute, but again, part of the preface to this is, this isn't happening in some vacuum. I mean, we've been at this for 15 months. Why are things seemingly getting worse? And why are people, and I'm not just blaming Thais here, foreigners, everybody, why are we acting as if we don't have more insight into this than we clearly do? At this point, there's been a lot of research, there's been a lot of data. It seems to me that lockdowns there doesn't seem to be any correlative or causative data that shows that they've improved anything that I can see, and I'm perfectly happy to stand corrected on that point if someone can produce some data on that. Although let's just anecdotally look at the situation here in Thailand in the last roughly 6 weeks. They shut everything down back around Songkran, and things got worse. How does that work? Now I don't understand. I'm honestly asking the question. I'm not positing my response. Back to the thrust of this video, I found this article, and it was similar to when I read this other article in the Bangkok Post some weeks back, where they brought in a child psychologist to talk to us all about how Thais can't be trusted to deal with the pandemic a year into the pandemic after they had locked down twice and were one of the highest per capita adopter countries of mask wearing and every other instruction they were given. We were told that, you can't be trusted to, follow the rules and things. I mean, whatever. So this I saw, and it sort of put a fine point on, again, I'm not pointing this out at this particular outlet. I've seen this across the board. Like I said before, Bangkok Post, Thai Visa, other places where they're talking about this stuff, and it's just, I don't know. I feel like there's a great line from the movie Zoolander where Will Ferrell's character says, "I feel like I'm taking crazy pills." I'm kind of at that point with some of this stuff. But a recent article, this is from the Pattaya Mail. Again, I'm not pointing them out specifically. I've seen this across the board. This was just one of the best examples of this as a phenomenon that I have seen. Pattaya Mail, May 27, 2021. That's pattayamail.com. Article is titled "Pandemic Fatigue Obvious on Pattaya Beaches." And I'm going to go ahead and quote here directly. "Pandemic fatigue is in full bloom in Pattaya, where, despite the threat of fines and arrests, people continue to flock to area beaches to gather and drink alcohol." Well, okay. Pandemic fatigue is in full bloom. And it's not pandemic fatigue. I would argue it's threat of fines and arrest fatigue for doing things like being outside. Quoting further, "A stroll along Jomtien Beach May 24th saw plenty of people sitting together and chatting, friends lounging on the beach, and no police to be found." And this is written as if this is a problem. Again, I just reiterate this. "A stroll along Jomtien Beach May 24th saw plenty of people sitting together and chatting, friends lounging on the beach, and no police to be found." Oh, God forbid anyone be chatting on the beach, of all things. Quoting further, "Those splashing in the water technically were the only ones not violating coronavirus protocols." Where are these protocols? We've done a number of videos on this channel where I have tried to cite the actual law that many of these officials have said have been promulgated to support their position of these coronavirus protocols. And as we've discussed, codification of these things, it's pretty lacking. The other thing I've noticed a lot is a lot of citation to the emergency decree, which, could we call that a law per se? I don't know. But my point is, again, my ire is not even really at the government here, because governments do what governments are going to do. They're going to respond. Governments are going to govern. That's what governments do. So I'm not even really all that upset with them. My question is who are these people that are sitting around saying things like, "A stroll along Jomtien Beach May 24 saw plenty of people sitting together and chatting, friends lounging on the beach, and no police to be found." Bum, bum, bum. Like, I feel like the Law and Order theme should play. Dun, dun. I'm just, again, I don't understand this mindset. Quoting further, "Until then, with virtually everything closed, there's little to do as residents wait for mass COVID-19 vaccination to begin in June." Yeah, everybody certainly is waiting with bated breath for that. Quoting further, "Until then, it's up to law enforcement to enforce the regulations enacted to prevent the spread of the virus." Well, hold on a minute. What regulations? Cite them. Where are they? Other than just vague decrees of do this, do that, or we're going to arrest you or fine you, I would like to see where these laws were promulgated, codified, and where these regulations stem from that are the result of these laws. So let's start there. What exactly are we talking about here? You know, people just lounging around and no police to be found, that's a crime now? Is that what this article is saying? You know, and meanwhile, to get more to the thrust of this, I don't usually quote articles to this extent, but it just, they have photos. We'll go ahead and put this one on screen. And the caption under this one, with pandemic fatigue in full bloom in Pattaya, many Thais and foreigners grouped together on the public footpath in Jomtien. So that's the caption under this photo. And just keep this on screen. Here's the photo. What do I count there? 4 people in that photo? I count 4 people. Many Thais and foreigners grouped together. So, and then another one, again, putting up this photo here. A stroll along Jomtien Beach, May 24, saw plenty of people sitting together and chatting, friends lounging on the beach. Again, it doesn't go into the full quote, with no police to be found. Lounging with intent to relax must be the crime, I guess. But again, it says a stroll along Jomtien Beach, May 24th, saw plenty of people. What plenty of people? I'm looking at this article. I've been in Jomtien Beach during tourist season, even during low season. This is not plenty of people by any metric of anyone that's been in Thailand. Quoting further, and then again, this next photo, again, I question, where are these plenty of people? You've got an empty beach. I count in the foreground 2 guys, and in the middle ground, you've got like 2 people, maybe 3. I can't quite make out on one side of that, maybe 2 on one side of this footpath, 2 on the other, and then way in the background, like 3 or 4 people. So 10 people at max, maybe 10 people in an area, outdoors in a wide area. I don't even know how many football fields you're looking on in there. But then again, with this caption under this photo, as long as people wear masks and maintain social distancing, there is not much police should do. Well, thank you. Not much police should do. What does this writer want? What does everybody, it's not just this person. I've seen the implications, the sort of pregnant prose of these people writing about this. What does everyone want? Do they want battalions of armor-clad cops sitting around on the beach, pushing people along if they stand for too long? Thailand is a free country, and it's a place that I happen to love. And I've got no problem with how they've handled everything to this point. I frankly have only had issues in the past few weeks when, frankly, Thailand has started acting with the hysteria of the rest of the world. It's been the West primarily and let's not forget the beginning of this with China, sort of welding people into buildings, supposedly. But, it's been the West that's been moving people off beaches when there was no appreciable reason that anyone could cite that needed to be done. It was the West that demanded all of these rules regarding what you had to wear and how far apart you had to stand. Again, and I'm very willing to stand corrected, but I have researched this pretty thoroughly. And to me, issues pertaining to lockdowns, things like especially outdoor mask mandates and social distancing, I think the jury is well and truly out as to whether or not those things have any appreciable impact on mitigation of this. Now, there are some things that I think certainly did. Most notably, I think you can make a very strong argument in favor of things like hand washing. Sure, had a tremendous impact. Commonsensical things like stay away from grandma if you have this disease, or if you think you've been exposed to it. Again, things like that didn't really bother me. The Thais here in Thailand instituted a true quarantine, which in my opinion was what needed to be done when no one knew what this was. Meanwhile, again, The West did things in a patchwork manner. America was letting people in, and then enforcing these rules and things, which doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. Not getting into the broader aspects of this, I think people can understand my personal bias, and set aside my personal bias maybe for a moment. My real issue is, what does this serve, this kind of tattletale, snitch media operation? And I've seen it across the board. It's not just one outlet. I'm not saying everyone either, but I've noticed a number of otherwise very reputable mainstream organizations and news outlets that have seemed to go out of their way to sort of like almost shame people for things as innocuous as lounging on the beach. And again, this is not some full moon party, some rave party with 300 people on a beach crowded up together. 4 people sitting around? Really? This is a problem? This is something we need to get the police on? We got to get the dragnet going to go after these folks? As I said, Thailand's a free country. I love this place. And my biggest argument, my biggest complaint about how all of this has been handled is frankly the influence from the outside. I think the Thais, if left their own devices, would have handled this in a very commonsensical manner. I think they have done. I think they've gone a little bit overboard in the past few weeks. But fanning the flames of this hysteria with this kind of tattletale snitch operation, these tactics, that doesn't help anyone. And I don't see how it mitigates transmission of this disease, which does kill people, and it is something to take seriously. But I don't see how that helps anyone. I don't see how it adds to the greater good. And especially where we're right here on the cusp, hopefully, of putting this thing behind us, I just don't see what the purpose of this is in May 2021.